Welcome to Liv Stories, a podcast that holds space for inspirational interactions that are real about navigating the challenging journey of separation and divorce. Expect laughter and some tears. It's all welcomed because Lived Stories is meant to be a safe space. Hello. Welcome to Liv Stories, everybody. I am your host, Liv Lewis, and I'm so grateful for you all and your listening and the feedback. And it's just so really, really great to see how it is helping and impacting you all. Today, I am so excited because I am chatting with the one and only Lauren Maillian. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, I like to start the conversation by sharing just a snippet about Lauren, but in her own words, because I think it's important for you all to get to know her and to get to know my guests and how they see themselves. And it's less about a bio, more about the person. And so here's Lauren in her own words. She writes, "I am Lauren Maillian, and I always have a plan." She had me right there. "A plan about what my goal is. The purpose of my journey is clear, and my contingency plan, if all else fails, is even clearer." Hi, Lauren.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having
I
me.
am so thrilled to be speaking to you today. Thank you so much for your time. I know you are booked and busy, my love.
I have been trying to make this happen, so
Yes.
I'm excited to be here and ready for the question.
Ready for the questions, because as soon as I heard I have a plan, I want to get right into this journey and this plan, and also was even more intrigued about your contingency plan. So not necessarily going to, it's a spoiler alert, Lauren is happily married. This is her second marriage, and she is a testament that there is a life after divorce. And we're in similar spaces. And I just so happened to talk about the fact that, oh, I'm divorced. And she was so open and honest and so vulnerable. And I said, well, girl, what happened? Tell me about it. And so that's where I want to kind of kick off the conversation, understanding the journey of what happened in that first marriage, how you got through it, and talking to me about, your current life, the current life lessons that led you into your second marriage. So in the beginning of it all, what were your understanding and context about marriage?
Well, the first time I got married, I was young. I was 20 years old. And my idea of marriage was partnership. My idea of marriage was hoping for respect, consistency, and loyalty. And I was young. I didn't know exactly what certain signs really meant. I think when we are young, especially when we want to be desired and loved, there are a lot of possessive tendencies that can turn into abusive behavior that might look like love. But really, it is the beginning of control and being controlled. And that was certainly my situation. There were a lot of things I thought were cute that were the beginning of really controlling unhealthy behaviors. And, I remember I'd never been on a girls' trip when I was married the first time, because any free time having friends. And, as an example, I felt like love. I felt like, oh, I'm desired all the time. You don't realize when you're that young that is the beginning of unhealthy behavior. So I think that's indicative of many lessons that I ended up learning. But it's not what I signed up for ultimately.
You talk about signs, and I want to just double click into that. What were the other signs that you missed? And this is for the young lady that is thinking about or in a relationship. What were some of those kind of like, that behavior is what was presented to me, but here are potential meanings behind it?
every moment that was meant for me to shine had to include the other person.
Okay.
I wasn't really given the space to have accomplishments or celebrations. Friends wanting to throw me a bridal shower. It was supposed to be kind of extra. And the bachelorette was an absolute no-go. Like, you're going to go where and do what? I mean, nothing crazy, but just the idea you're going to go have fun with your girlfriends and do something anywhere. Nobody was even saying Vegas or St. Paul. Back into a destination. But again, in that moment, it felt like love. Oh, you care about me. I want to be with you. And then that morphed into a co-ed bridal shower. And in hindsight, a co-ed bridal shower without having something for the bride to do with her friends and the groom to do with his friends, I think is the beginning of a red flag to say, while you are seeking to create a union, you should still have space to be an individual. That means individual friendships. That means individual relationships. That means individual celebrations, right? Life is designed to be lived, and with a variety of different people who have different influence.
I love that. What was another sign that you read as, oh, cute love, but it was like danger, girl?
Well, this was interesting. When I had my son, my firstborn, I was 22 years old, already married for 2 years. And I used to have a chime on the home alarm. So that every time the door would open, you would hear like, ding.
Yeah.
And as a new mom, I realized, I have this house and this ding is great, especially when you're a new homeowner. I think you do want
to. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I remember when I disabled the chime because I got my son into a really good nap schedule. And I didn't want opening, closing the door, whether that was me to go sit outside or anybody to take out trash or anything to make this ding that would go out throughout the whole house and wake him up. And my now ex-husband came home and realized that there was no chime, which also meant that I didn't know he had walked in.
Okay.
And so, I mean, literally, I had just disabled this that day while he was at work. And the response was, I've been here for 15 minutes. You didn't know. I wasn't greeted. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh my God, like, how dare I?
All right. How are you? How's your day? Yeah.
Like, almost like, wow, like I wasn't here to open the door, because the other response used to be, I hear the ding, I run to the door, hey, welcome home. How you doing?
Right.
How was
Got it.
What's going on? And again, that moment that was not designed to be about him, it was designed to be what was best for my sleeping newborn child, turned into a, you don't have an alert that I walked in the door so that I can have everything that I expect to have. And in that moment, again, this is me now. My son is 16 going on 17, so this is 16 and a half years ago.
Right.
And I've had sole custody, legal and physical custody of my kids since 2011. So temporarily since 2009, since 2011. So, you know, it's interesting to now look back on these things as a full-fledged adult with a lot of life experience. But even then, in that moment, as a 22-year-old mom to a newborn, 2 years into a marriage, in a somewhat new home, that felt to me like I had room for improvement as a wife. It's like, wow, what had I done wrong that I wasn't the poster wife to welcome you home? But also realizing, as a lot of people have said to me, especially people who've known me that long in my journey or since childhood or middle school or college or what have you, they're like, Lauren, you would have never become the woman you are today if you could stay with him.
Wow.
And so it's really one of the greatest blessings in hindsight, A, because it was just a company for me and the children, but also, would I have even become a businesswoman? Would I have been such a successful entrepreneur?
Right.
Because I wouldn't have been afforded the space or opportunity to take risks, take challenges, not be home, let alone go on business trips or go to conferences or give talks on stages around the world, because there was this expectation of being available. And, available and attached, like at all times. You know, I think another sign was, you know, when I would have dinners with girlfriends or have my catch-up time, it would be when there was something on his calendar that was work-related. So if he was out till 8, I could be out till 8. If he was out till 9 and had a conference or a dinner, that was my time. Again, I thought that was okay. That seemed logical. If we're going to be out, let's both be out and two birds with one stone. And I think it's a considerate thing to do in a relationship or in a marriage, especially when you're trying to maximize time.
Right.
But to also know that you really don't have the option to go out any other day. Like literally at their calendar, someone else's calendar, and cross-reference your availability, not truly based on your availability, but to sit there and go, I could actually do any day, but actually I can't. I can only do this day and this day because these are the days that they're unavailable to do something, which makes it available without need for explanation. And so, you know, that was another thing that certainly, don't get me wrong, I'm married, you know, again, to a really lovely, awesome human being who's a great partner, and certainly cross-reference schedules and make sure that we're, you know, oh, you want to do something this day? That's actually a great day for me to do something too. Or hey, you want to go into the city and see so-and-so? That's a great time for me to call my girlfriend or my work colleague and see if they can get together. Those are normal things. But I think it's very easy to get that twisted with someone saying, like, these are the circumstances under which you can have a life, or these are the circumstances under which you can engage in cultivating and nurturing your friendships. Like those sorts of things, I think when you're young, especially when, you know, you want to be desired and where you want to please someone, then very quickly turn into treacherous waters.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize this is a recurring behavior? These signs are really becoming mountainous and this marriage is ending.
All of the above that I just shared.
Yeah.
That all happened really quickly. It was almost like a child was, I don't know. I think in many respects, I became a better mom and more of a mom than was anticipated. You know, there was a huge difference, a large age difference. My husband was 17 years older than me. And so I don't know what he thought he was getting. 20-year-old, 22-year-old mom, and then becoming a mom again at 24.
Got you.
Right. So he had seen me in action as a stepmom to his children from a previous marriage. But I certainly became more of a real mom. Like I really wanted to change diapers. I really wanted to go to every music class. I really wanted to be present. I even surprised myself. Like I loved it. I was picking out the outfits. I wanted a backup outfit. I wanted the booties to match. Like, I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
I loved until this day. Love and cherish mom.
That's so wonderful.
And I don't really know what he expected. But that's also another thing that youth or naivete can do to you. You don't discuss with your partner. What are you looking for? You know, when you're married, cool. What are you looking for in a mother to our children? And vice versa. Women, what are you looking for? Whether you're with a man or a woman, if you got two mamas in your setup, or you got a dad and a mom in your setup, are you asking your partner, hey, what kind of mom do you want to be? What kind of dad do you want to be? What else do you want to take on? And how do you think you can, you know, add value to our child's upbringing in this home? Like, I probably didn't have those conversations in the right way. And I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way. Right. But I do have this expectation of, you know, a lot of people get married and the recurring question is, where's the baby? When's the baby coming? That wasn't necessarily my life or my world, but I see it around me with friends. And, you know, some go to premarital counseling before they even get married. Some do it with a counselor. Some do it with a minister. Some do it with a deacon. Some do it with, I don't know, some life coach that they have that they share. Some do it on some eat, pray, love kind of sign up for a workshop and go somewhere and do it on a long weekend or a week. I think there's a lot of ways to approach it, but I don't think that most couples are having conversations about the sorts of parents that they want to be individually and the sorts of parents that they feel they can best be in partnership collectively. And maybe you don't even have all those answers, because if you've never been a parent before, you might not know. You might be like, I don't really know what to expect, but I'm going to wait to see. And when that baby comes, I mean, it's like we can't mitigate or prepare for every single scenario.
Right.
But I do think we can have conversations that, something as simple as discipline, just as an example.
Yeah.
Like, have you had conversations? If you're of a certain age, you might have grown up knowing certain methods, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is that what you want to do? Is it going to be monkey see, monkey do? Or is it going to be creating a new way that's a better way? Is it going to be, as an example, I never spoke to my kids in baby language, in gaga language, and my kids never did pacifiers. And there's nothing wrong with anyone who did that. But my whole thing was, I am always going to speak to my children. I'm always going to, the energy. People used to say to me, I was playing certain songs and all these things when I was pregnant. I'd play smooth jazz, and I didn't know I would be that kind of pregnant woman either. But everyone said to me, your son is going to come out smart, mathematical. He's been listening to all this music and news and conversations. But these things matter, right? But you maybe don't know how you're going to be when you're pregnant. If you're going to be very emotional, if you're going to allow people to get you worked up. By way of example, when I was pregnant with my kids, I was like, if anything would even try to make my blood boil, I'd say, I have to exit this conversation, because I didn't want that to be my energy, and I didn't want that to transfer to my child. Now, if you had sat me down and asked me, what do you plan to do in your pregnancy when you get stressed? I never told you in advance, my mechanism or how I was going to decide to engage or disengage in certain situations. But I do think that there's room for more and more conversation between relationships on how they want to show up in certain stages and phases of their lives. I mean, this is something that I walk the talk. Now my son is a senior, my daughter's a sophomore. We're looking at colleges, and I asked my husband, who is dad to them.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you think is the right way? I mean, there's a million strategies these days. Some folks look at all the colleges to see if their kids like them and then decide where they're going to apply. But then you have a whole other camp these days that says, you know what, we're just going to apply to all these schools, and then we're only going to visit the ones our kid gets into. Like, that's a conversation you need to have. That is a different approach to college. Like, does your kid have a say? Is it all the parents driving this direction? But the point is, these sorts of conversations, I think, lead to successful relationships, not just marriages, successful partnerships, and understanding the motivations of your partner or your stakeholder, whoever that might be. But in a marriage, your stakeholder is your partner and your children. Right? These are your stakeholders. So even now, as a family, we have Sunday meetings as a family. And
I love that.
I instituted meetings about a year ago, and it has been a game changer for us. And at first, the kids were like, I don't want to do this meeting. And I intentionally put it for 10 a.m. on Saturday because I wanted them to, I don't mind sleeping in a little bit.
Yeah.
They're athletes and students, they deserve some rest. Rest is good for their body, good for their brain, good for their soul. But I don't play that sleep till the middle of the afternoon game, right? I'm just not out of mind. So I was like, you can sleep at it, but 10 o'clock on Sundays, we're going to have that meeting, and it's going to be in person. And then I really defined these rules. And the other rules were, there is a video conference link in there for when you have sleepovers or somebody's traveling or I'm traveling or what have you. And lo and behold, week 3 of our family meetings, I was in Aspen skiing with my daughter, and my husband and son decided last minute not to come with us, which was totally fine. But my son was on that link, and he goes,
I love that. Mm-hmm.
It might be 8 a.m., but you need to be on this call. And right? But creating these lines of communication to ensure that what is expected in a partnership among your family, among your partners, the stakeholders of your family.
Yeah.
I take a lot of lessons in my personal life and apply them to business. I take a lot of my business lessons and apply them to to family instances. And, the idea of like a weekly stand-up meeting. Yeah, my family needs a weekly stand-up meeting. Or it's
That's great. I might institute that in my household. But it also, and it's interesting the conversations I have with women around, yes, the signs, but also the lived lessons in open communication, identifying the stakeholder, and the most important stakeholder is your partner. And when that line of communication is broken down, recurring, that's where it leads to the end. When you were experiencing, the separation, what were some of the resources that you implored into understanding your rights, into understanding, how to approach making a decision of that's such a grave magnitude. And it's great to hear the kids are wonderful. And talk me through some of the things you did to unpack that.
Well, I got left. My daughter was 6 weeks old. I had two
Wow.
kids, two by myself. And I remember it really vividly because it was November of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I wasn't really comfortable speaking to people. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't want to say anything if anything could be salvaged. Because then I felt like, if I say
So
something,
he left. And you were still hoping for like, okay, maybe he'll come back and we can figure this out.
Absolutely. I had two little kids under two. I was 24 years old. I was on my very first business. I was paying myself $40,000 a year. And I would have done anything to keep my family together and just to even get to like kindergarten. I remember praying like, let me just stay in this situation, even if it is awful until kindergarten. I just had I wasn't even set up for that kind of game plan, clearly, because a lot transpired and I had not protected myself in the right ways because I was so trusting. I was so perfect in every single way. And it was quite the lesson. So what did I do in terms of resources? I had to figure it out very quickly. I had to figure it out really quickly. And I took solace in reading gossip magazines, Page 6, OK People. And 1 week after my situation happened and my world imploded as I knew it, Elin Nordegren and Tiger Woods was happening. And I woke up that next day to seeing that Elin had taken the golf.
It was a golf, right? And just tore up
his car. And I was like, ooh. So I just kept tracking that story. And then I was trying other divorces that were hitting Page 6 because it just made me feel better. But it also then allowed me to go down the rabbit hole of like all the lawyer names that, were being thrown out, Laura Wasserman, this and that, none of which I could afford to engage.
Right.
But I just went on all of their websites. I started reading about like all of their cases. And I really started educating myself on like every different scenario, claims, kind of positioning, I think Charlie Sheen was having his situation too.
Oh my goodness, me back to like,
but I was just reading every scenario that I could. And I was then going and researching those lawyers, and they all have case studies on their websites. I was reading case studies and situations and trying to find ones that mirrored mine.
Yours.
And trying to give me any inkling of what to do, how to do it, And then I also spent a lot of time going on every single free consultation I could get. And I was in New York, so, luckily New York, at least back then, I don't think now you can get so many free consultations because I didn't even really want to give a lot of free consultations back then. Yeah. But I think when they think that there's, an interesting situation, you might get it. And I remember they'd be like, I have an hour. And some might go 2 hours. Some might go 3 hours. They really have to end an hour. I mean, they wanted me to don't get it twisted. They wanted me out. But there I am, like boo-hooing in their office. And, and a girlfriend told me, don't treat lawyers like therapists because the therapist is a lot cheaper than the lawyer. So like save those tips.
True. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people use, and that has a couple lawyers tell me that too. When you were level-headed and you have questions and So I kept reading, I kept researching, I kept reading online the law and precedent and just as much as I possibly could. But I went on as many free consultations as I could get. I wish we had had like AI note takers then, because I would have even gone much farther. But I was feverishly taking notes, and and then family court has its own office, self-litigated office, an office for self-litigants. And I ended up having one there because I didn't have resources for a lawyer. Everything had been taken. Everything had been wiped and gone.
Wow.
And so I learned to be my own best representative. And soon after, I thought I wanted to go to law school. So, but I threw myself into just trying to get the answers. I had friends who were lawyers, none of whom were divorce lawyers. It was really funny. All of them were like criminal defense lawyers, or corporate litigators, or intellectual property lawyers. So none of them were like versed in divorce, but they were versed in how things work generally.
Got you.
And I asked so many questions. I mean, I was like a complete sponge. I asked so many questions and begun to like navigate myself forward.
Yeah. And it also, just to make sure I'm picking up what you're putting down too, you had 2 babies at home, a newborn at home and a toddler, and he left, and you're doing all of these things. What was your support? Did you have a support system at all during that time?
I had my parents, and I had a really wonderful, really, really wonderful nanny.
Great.
And she was just like, that was interesting, because till this day, she's a really important person in our life. And
oh, that's good.
She stayed with me. She was like, okay, I don't know when you're going to get the money to pay me, but I'm coming to you. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
She was the realist. She was really, truly the realist.
Love that. So, and I don't want to misspeak. The actual divorce process was a tumultuous one. Correct? Yeah. What can you share? I don't want to have you overshare in that process for the individual who is actually in a similar situation. What advice could you potentially give? One thing, maybe.
Advice that I can potentially give is, I have a lot of advice I can potentially give, but for anyone, it's easy to say like, know what you're getting yourself into, but it's just not realistic, right? People change. People reserve the right to change for the better, but also for the worst.
Ooh, okay.
And I think making sure that you have protected yourself, whatever that is, if that is a separate bank account, if it's a prenup, if it's, making sure that you have certain rules on contributions to certain assets or ownership of certain assets, or how things get split and devised. I think it is a lot easier to create those guardrails, create those systems and that setup when you are happy and in love, and certainly not when you are at odds.
Right.
Again, easier said than done. But making sure that you are protecting yourself, and that looks different for everyone in every situation.
Yeah.
Blended families, new families, like there's a lot of different considerations, right? But just nobody ever wants to think about the worst. But I guess actually rewind. This is my advice. In as much as you love the person you're about to marry, I think it behooves both sides to individually think about what is the worst case scenario that could happen in a couple of different buckets: life, money, career, home ownership, health, any of these things, right? Not all of them mean that you have to be at odds with one another, right? You think about what's the worst that could happen to my spouse. I mean, God forbid, right?
Right.
Think about those scenarios, because when we think about, business as an example, when we enter contracts in business, if you are a good business person, you think about and negotiate for potential worst case scenarios. you might negotiate for the best case scenario too, but you're also going to do the worst case scenario. I have to protect myself. And I think that is something that really should flow through into interpersonal relationships, partnerships, marriages, domestic partnerships, whether you're legally married or living together. I never would have imagined that I'd be one for like a cohabitation. But I have a lot of friends that are just, not married, don't necessarily want to be married. They're living together. It's like, maybe you should have a cohabitation agreement, right? Like, what does that look like if anything changes? And it doesn't, again, have to be that you're always at odds. It could be, what does that look like if, God forbid, your partner, loses their income, and what happens?
Plan.
Play out some of those scenarios so that you have a contingency plan for your partnership, and you have a contingency plan for your life within that partnership and your contributions and value in that partnership.
It's so true too, because when you're in love, you're not thinking about, and I love this goes back to learning you in your own words about those plans, which also now points back to conversation to understand a person's value. And you also got to kind of see who that person is in the worst case scenario based on how they think about the plan, which also shows you who that person could really be should you decide to go a different way, right? Which I wish I had, and I got married young too, in knowing the kinds of things to ask. Anyway, so want to fast forward us to the present. Talk to me about, one, how did you learn to do it again? Like, what made you be like, you know what? I'm going to give this a second go. What were some of those indicators?
I don't know that I learned to do it again. I was open to doing it again.
Okay.
I was open to doing it again, and not for anybody or any situation. I was open to doing it again for the person I married, for the individual man that I married, who showed me his commitment, love, and loyalty to me and my children, and to be together.
Yeah.
And that to me was more important and profound to protect and to honor. And it also was beyond my wildest dreams of what I thought could be possible again.
Oh, I love that.
What love could feel like, what love could look like. And when he proposed, he did not just propose to me, he proposed to all three of us. And I was speechless. He proposed to all of us. My mom was hiding behind the wall, falling. But he asked them first, one fell swoop, and then asked me. So that is the way in which he's entered our lives, the way in which he has stayed in our lives, and I married that. Like I almost married that more than I married. Yes, I married him, but had he not shown up in that way, and had he not shown up in that way throughout the beginning of our relationship, my children would not have said yes, and therefore I would not have said yes. So I was really saying yes to something bigger than just him in the flesh, to be honest.
Oh, that's beautiful. So if we were to wrap our conversation and you were to say a lived truth to our listeners, what would that be?
A lived truth is, don't think that you need an individual to create a life for you, that you are likely capable of creating on your own. And that the value of partnership is so important in feeling motivated, confident, and equipped to be your absolute best self. And you can still have the life you want with a different structure than what you might know or envision to be possible.
Yeah. And the resounding thing I heard in our conversation and in how you decided to go into your next is being open, which is hard, right?
It's hard. It's hard, but there were signs. I definitely tested him.
I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was so rich and so valuable. Thank you for your vulnerability. I appreciate you so, so much. And thanks so much for just giving us hope.
Yeah, look, there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Definitely. I pinch myself daily. I'm very grateful for where we are and what we've been able to create as a family, as a family unit. And life gives you seasons and experiences from which you learn. Sometimes you learn what you don't want. Sometimes you learn what you absolutely do want.
Yeah.
But those seasons are not in vain. Sometimes we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right away, but trust that it does exist.
And that is the journey of Miss Lauren, everybody. Thank you so much again for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We want to express our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible community. Your strength and resilience shine brightly. And together, we're creating a safe space filled with solace, guidance, and inspiration. If you resonated with today's episode, share with anyone who might find comfort and support with this conversation. Let's spread warmth and encouragement and hope. Join the Lived community on social channels. It's Lived Stories on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, where you can connect with like-minded women, share your story, and access even more trusted resources. Until next time, take care and remember, you're not alone in this journey. You are stronger than you think, and you can do hard things.